Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are here for a real treat on Sportswire Radio. I promise you, this will be a live one. Our guest tonight, figuratively and literally, has done it all. And he's done it all, not just in the world of wrestling. Oh, and I promise you, I'm going to get to that because this man's legacy speaks for itself. But he's also been an actor. We'll talk about some stuff he's done, some stuff he's working on. We'll talk about his run as a kickboxer. I mean, Chuck Norris, John Claude Van Damme, eat your heart out. He's been doing that since, get this, 1987. I won't even bring up my age, and I won't even bring up some of the other people that listen to Sportswire Radio's age, because this man has been doing it all since then. He's also been a model. That's right. He's even modeled in some of the famous streets in London. He'll talk about that. He's also been an educator, where maybe, ladies and gentlemen, he's done his greatest work in serving our great communities throughout the UK and that. But as I stated, we'll talk about his decorated career as a wrestler, which has led him to some of the biggest stages, which has led him to multiple runs with the Persian Empire. We'll talk about his world championships and currently what he's up to in UKW, because he is, after all, one half of their tag team champions. And he'll also talk about the fact that he's actually teamed with father and son. I'll talk about that and some. We'll even talk about maybe things like, I don't know, an event years back, and maybe even a video I'll pull up on the screen from memory lane, and who knows, whatever else we'll talk about tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute honor to introduce this man. When this man asked me over a month ago to come on to Sportswire Radio, he almost wanted to give his resume to me. And I'm like, no, sir. I've actually watched you in the ring. In fact, I watched you when you were a world champion wrestle a chain match against another world champion in another promotion. I'll talk about that. And I even referenced you against a man that you said was in, ironically enough, one of the top matches of your career. So this man needs no further introduction. I can go on and on and on about him, but I'm going to give him that introduction that so many of his peers have gotten over the past 5+ years on Sportswire Radio, that it's time to let him hear it. It's time to let the audience hear it. It's time to let his fans hear it. And most importantly, I want to do it because that's my calling card, because he has done some podcasts after all, but I'll guarantee you that those podcasts will be nothing in comparison to what he's in for tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get right to it and introduce a true living legend in this great sport of wrestling and give him that introduction that he deserves, because he is, after all, the Sultan of Slams, the King of Knockouts, the Prince of Destruction, and he is the monster, simply put. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give him an introduction. So, with that, wait for it, further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one, terrible sports show. Simply put, he is the prince, the monster, as I stated, the Sultan of Slams, the King of Knockouts, the Prince of Destruction. His name is the living legend and one half of the UKW Tag Team Champions. His name is Mustafa. The champ is here. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, Rev. Very well. Thank you for such an amazing introduction. Thank you.
Well, I told you that this would be a real live one. I told you that this would be one for the ages. A lot of people I know have been wondering about it. We're here live, and it's an absolute honor to have you. I'll obviously recover from my voice here in a few minutes, but it's certainly an absolute honor. I know there's a lot that we go and talk about, obviously, your journey, But I think obviously let's start off here. For those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, you've been a huge part of things in UKW. You were one half of their tag team champions, and obviously UKW always has tons of things coming up. And I always like to start with the current events because I always try to be current on Sportswire Radio, because I know you get requests to do podcasts all the time. You get requests from all over the place to do different types of things. But I figured let's start out kind of easy, kind of work our way easy into things here in the world. And UKW always has multiple things coming up, which you're going to certainly be a part of, I have no doubt. And we have Showdown coming up this Friday, and tell us what we can expect from you coming up here on UKW TV here in these next few weeks.
Well, I've had to be honest with UKW, I've had a little bit of time off due to ill health, and I missed the main show. So
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so I sadly missed that, but due to ill health, I couldn't make it. There wasn't a chance in hell that I could make it. So
you're
basically,
Mustafa, you'll get a pass, I'm sure.
But it was, but to be honest with you, it was only this morning that I got a message from Jonathan Cedric. And I said, "Yep, next week, if I'm needed, I'm back next week. So I'll be seeing what will be happening and see, if they see what's happening at UKW. I'll be down. I'll be visiting." Definitely.
All right, let me ask you a question, because you have been, I think, one of the longest tenured UKW guys. You've obviously been in the company a long time, and the company is certainly speaks for itself. And in terms of just also the shows and the amount of content we have out there, and I know obviously you've been a huge part of things. We spoke about the Persian Empire multiple times. You're one half of the tag team champions. When you're not on these shows and you're injured, I don't think I've ever asked a wrestler this question, but do you pay more attention, less attention to the shows when you're on the shelf like that? How do you kind of deal with that issue? Because I always think that's a fascinating question. I've been doing this a long time, and I never really asked that question before. What's that like in terms of that?
I think with me, I'm probably different to a lot of wrestlers where they will go and watch the show. They will, and what I find is when you're going and watching and this, that, and the other, it tends to push you back into training, push you back into shows, but then that injury can reoccur. What I do is I take myself away from it. And this is what I say to a lot of youngsters. I turned 50 years old in January this year.
I wasn't going to bring it up because you are, after all, 6'4" plus, and literally, and I've actually watched you live in a ring, which you were like, "Oh, do I know who you are?" Like, no, and I'm like, in the intro, like, I've seen you wrestle a champion in another promotion, which I'll get to in a little while. But no, I've seen what you look like, and I've watched you on TV, so no arguing there.
Well, this is it. It's all about self-preservation. And like I said, if I'm injured and if I'm away from wrestling, that gives me a chance to recover quickly. More better. If I'm there, I want to jump in. I want to get involved. I want to do this, that, and the other. So I think it's discipline from the martial arts days where once I've recovered and I'm back to 100%, not 90%, not 95%, once I'm 100%, and that's when I'm going to be heading back. And I think that's what I do is I just keep away from it.
For sure. Okay. Again, I could see both sides of the coin, and I thought that was a fascinating answer there. But, I'm also curious in the fact that you have had an amazing career. You have done so many different things in this sport. But what motivates you? You have eggs in different baskets, right? We have acting. I'm going to pull up the acting in a little while. We've got kickboxing. You've been doing that again. John Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris eat your heart out. I mean, you kill them. Well, they're like, in their basically twilight of their lives now. But the point is, you have different things in the basket. So what motivates you still to continue to be a part of things in the wrestling world?
It's I love what I do. It's just simple to when you stood behind the curtains and your music hits. That's the best feeling ever.
I've heard that before from guys all over the place. I speak with people all over the world in wrestling, and they tell me, Tom, there's nothing like when that music hits, you can't explain it.
It's one of the best feelings ever. And I mean, one of the hardest things I had to do was around 13 years ago, my mum passed away. And month later, I was raising money for charity, and I wrestled at the school where I worked at. Now, one of the hardest things was my family was sat in the front row, and next to my father was an empty seat. And I came out to the ring um, with a bunch of roses, and I placed him on the seat where my mum would have been sat. And the love I got, the support I got. But if that wrestling show hadn't gone on, the charity wouldn't have got the money what they received. And it's for me, everyone that knows me knows that I'm a loyal guy. I will. I know my mum would have wanted that charity event to go ahead. Didn't want to cancel it, but the wrestling fans, you can't beat them. You can't beat them.
I agree with you that there's nothing to me. You could talk about anything in sports. You could talk about, football and around the world. You can talk about boxing. You can talk about UFC, different things like that. But to me, nothing pales into comparison of the wrestling fan. The wrestling fan are some of the most devoted, loyal, and all the traits that you have. So I could certainly, appreciate all of those things. And you've been in UKW a long time. And what's it been like to watch the product over time? Obviously, Rampage Brown and other people have been through the company. Obviously different names we'll speak about in a little while. But I mean, how have you feel that the company has evolved in terms of the longevity of the brand over the years? I mean, I've talked about UKW in the past at times here on the platform, but obviously a man like you who's been here since 2011, 13 years, I kind of feel like that's an interesting question to ask.
I think when I first, to be honest with you, it was Rampage Brown that recommended, gave me a call and said, there's a wrestling company just down a few miles away from yourself. Get yourself down. I made that call and I had a meeting with Jonathan Sedgwick. And instead of staying 10, 15 minutes, I stayed for 2-3 hours talking to him. And I was expecting months and months of training and then be on a show, but he'd seen what I've done before. And the shows, we had academy shows, but it were a big venue, very big venue. We had academy shows, and then we had the main shows and this, that, and that. But as time's gone on, UKW just got bigger and bigger. And from what I've seen now is they've got the network, they've got obviously the YouTube, they've got everything.
UKW Arena. I mean, you've got really it's interesting because I cover a lot of wrestling. I cover a lot of things around the world in a different ways. And somebody's going to give me a comment, and I'm going to tell you some of the things I think. So somebody here obviously wants to give me a comment, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts on a couple different things. But the UKW product has been around for a long time and has had different things, in terms of the different multimedia facets. Talk about how that has changed over time and helped the product.
Well, yeah, it's. I mean, I remember. Before it was just probably. We had the crowd at the beginning when I was there, 2011. We just had the crowd, and I think it was DVDs, Blu-rays that were produced, and where the fans could buy them. But then now they've got the network. They've got all sorts. The YouTube, TikTok, this, that, and the other. They're getting more exposure, and even the talent that we've got. I mean, I remember once I was at the commentary desk, and I think it was a time when my father had passed away. I'd just come back to wrestling.
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, thank you. And I think it was someone from Australia. It was, it's good to see Mustafa Khan back. Even though I was behind the commentary desk. So we've got a fan base, and Mustafa Khan, I know myself, I've got messages from people in Africa, Australia, Canada, Europe, from all over the world, and it's mind blowing. And if UKW didn't have the network and the exposure that they do, I wouldn't be hearing from anyone from Australia or.
Well, that's the power of social media. That's the power of YouTube. And, I want to ask you this question because I want to nip it right in the bud, because some of the things we've talked about here in the past, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot, is that UKW has had guys that have wrestled in the company that, maybe haven't had the kind of experience or the proper training. That's something that, has been brought up here on this platform from different people and such. Now, obviously, you've been around a long time. And what would you say to that? I mean, there is a lot of people in the British wrestling scene, have brought those things up on the platform here, and myself included. What would you say to those things?
What we've got wrestlers that have very little experience and they've been put on shows. Is that
Yeah, that's different people have come on and said those things, and it's obviously been, I speak with a lot of people in different things. Obviously, this is not directed towards you, but
yeah,
the
yeah,
person
no, no,
gives me a
um,
comment, and I'm a pretty straightforward guy. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
to be upfront, and I think that is something that we've spoke about here in the platform. And there's been guys that have come on here, and they've had experiences. I'm sure I'm going to bring up one man that you wrestled that they spoke a lot about UKW, and their experiences certainly weren't the experiences that you have had, and I
yeah,
think that is a fair point to bring up, and I'm
yeah,
going to bring it up in terms of
yeah,
what
yeah.
would you say to some of those things?
I think if you look at a lot of the promotions, a lot of the smaller promotions, should I say, we've been to shows, or I've been in shows. I can only talk for myself.
Sure.
I know for a fact I've been on shows where um, either as a spectator or a wrestler, and I've got involved in a show, and I'm thinking, damn, should this person be in a ring? This should, he needs another few months or years of training and this, that, and the other. But in all honesty, what it comes down to is the owner, the promoter.
Right. Obviously,
Um,
you're a talent. I mean, it's certainly a
yeah,
question that at the end of the day, you can't answer that question.
yeah,
That would be up to the promoter of the company. So that's
yeah,
something that again, that's it's an unfair question in a way.
yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, we have to at least bring it up
We,
here.
yeah, I think we have to. I mean, the other thing is, it's like, personally, from my point of view, we all have to start off somewhere. Uh,
Absolutely.
we all have to start off somewhere, and this is one thing why I say to a lot of the younger wrestlers is, not everyone's going to be your fan. Not everyone is going to like your match, your entrance, your gear. I used to wrestle for a company in Stoke-on-Trent for a gentleman called Chris. That's where I originally started off in 2001. And if you did not have wrestling boots, you were not on the show. You will not. You were not allowed to wrestle. Kayfabe was massive, and but the thing is,
I had
I
Dean
know that.
Allmark here a few times. He talked about that as well. That
Yeah. Oh,
the
Dean.
wrestling
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very
Yeah.
good friend of mine, actually. A
Yeah.
very good friend of mine, and you
Well,
know,
we both started off at the same company.
yeah,
Uh,
All
uh,
Star Wrestling, right?
it was before that one. Before that one, it was oh boy, a gentleman called Chris that had a company called BWA, British Wrestling Alliance, I think it was.
Yeah, because I think he started in '99, 2000 was when he got his first formal training. There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So I used to travel. It was literally a 2-hour drive from Leeds to Stoke, and that's where I know Dean from. He's a legend. He's a
Oh
legend.
my God, and he's actually doing some training now. I just spoke to him
Right.
not too long ago. He's doing a lot of different things. I'm curious on this question, and there's a lot of people that want to say some things, and I want to say hello to everybody out there. And I'm going to bring up your social media up in a few minutes. But how do you feel? You started in 2001, and how do you feel wrestling has changed in the British wrestling scene since 2001? I think that's a question that would be kind of good for the audience to hear your perspective on.
In my eyes, it's changed a lot. I'm old school, and even when it comes to martial arts, I'm old school. So it's one of those where, how shall I put it without insult? I don't want to insult no one. There's um, there's a lot of bitchiness. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of backstabbing. My idea is, and this is one thing I've always said, is a lot of the wrestlers will go ask other wrestlers, "What was my match like? What was my?" What they need to do is they need to go ask the booker or the promoter because they're the ones that are going to rebook them again.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. Also, the other thing is especially in wrestling, there's a lot of backstabbing, like I said. So you might go to someone and say, "What was my match like?" And they can give you negative feedback, or they can blow smoke up your butt and say, "Oh yeah, you're the greatest wrestler in the whole world," and blah blah blah. This that, and the other. Anyone that knows me at UKW, I will have my match. I'll go back downstairs. I'll get changed. And if Jonathan says to me, "Monty, yeah, the match was good, fine, everything." If I don't hear anything, if I don't hear anything from you, I know it was okay. It was good. It was good, right? I'm now is in my eyes, and like I said, I can only speak for myself. There's too many experts all of a sudden.
Too many cooks in the kitchen. Too
Yeah,
many
yeah.
cooks in the kitchen.
There've been too many people within the game that people maybe have trained 5, 6 months, 10 months, a year or so, and all of a sudden they're experts. And one thing I have taken training at UKW, and everyone knows that the training that I take, I don't want no one talking. There's discipline. No one's on their mobile phones. No one's talking. Everyone's focused on one thing, and that's training. And then the thing with me is I go out and wrestle, and all I do is I focus on me, and I focus on my match. I don't focus on the negativity. I don't focus on anyone that's chatting. I never really get involved in the politics. A lot of people at UKW will agree that I'm like the locker room leader. So when there is any issues or whatever, they come to me. I'm the one that the people turn to, and then I try and go and sort everything out.
Was that a role that you naturally kind of grew into, or is that something like you okay right away? I had to be that guy because there are people
No,
in different places that go about it in a different way. Were you just naturally into the role?
I
What was that like?
I think um basically what happened was the relationship that Jonathan and I have got, we became really close very quick. He knew that I'm not going to bitch or moan about anything. He could put me up against a 15-year-old that weighs 95 pounds, and if I have to, and I'll do what I'll do. Yeah, there isn't going to be no moaning, there ain't going to be no bitching, no nothing. And it was like, yeah, and he was like, Mustafa, I want this done. It's done. Mustafa, can I get those? Bam, 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 and it's done. There's no questions. No, now, and it's like I'll get, now with a lot of the youngsters is not all of them, but the chips on the shoulders, the egos of and and I'm not afraid to say this, and I will say it that I kind of lost it in the locker room, and I offered everyone out. I said, look, there's only one guy here that's a real deal, and it's me. And if there's any issues, we can deal with it. Even at the age of 49, I said I can still break jaws. I can still do what I have to do.
Well, look
So
at the
if anyone,
size of you. I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
no, no,
let's look
but
at the size. I mean,
I'm
your
the
strength and your background. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to argue with that.
I'm the most gentle guy you'll ever meet. I but when I feel that I've been disrespected, if I feel that um you know, the other thing with me is, and this is one thing I always say to everyone, yeah, the wrestlers, with me, I'm very different to the majority of the wrestlers. For me, it's the promotion. Yeah. And this is one thing I said in a training session. The promotion is the one thing I'm focused on because wrestlers come and go, but the promotion's going to remain there. If you get what I mean, it's like my kickboxing school. My students I value, I love them to bits, but it's my kickboxing school that I've got to focus on, as well as my students. And what tends to happen is a lot of the trainees they kind of forget that.
So I want to address something real quick because obviously there's somebody here in the chat who either wrestles for UKW
Right.
or is somebody that's within the company. So I'm going to basically put it out there because they
All
don't
right.
because I want to obviously not steer this into a direction like prior shows. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've said things, but I'm here right now speaking to you. So this individual maybe wrestles for the company, maybe was within the company, didn't like some of the things that I said, but I'm here having a civil conversation with you. So I just want
Yeah.
to put that out there right now. So I'm pretty sure I have an idea who the individual might be. So it's my platform. If you want to have a civil conversation right now, we're having it. Now, the individuals that were on the show, they wrestled in the company. They had their opinions. We've addressed some of those things. If you'd like to stay here and ask questions about Mustafa Khan and his career, you're welcome to. If you want to make this a conversation about you in prior shows, you're not going to be on the platform giving any comments. So you're welcome to stay and have a conversation. I don't want to usurp this into a conversation that completely takes away from you. So I do want to put that out there. And also, it's always good when you put comments out there to put your name actually onto who you are. So I'm just going to put it out here. I want to be professional with you and civil because we have some individuals. I'm pretty sure one of these guys actually works and wrestles with you because he's actually been known to kind of more or less pass back information, and he's in UKW. So I'm going to leave that at that. So I don't want to go any further and I just want to be respectful and professional too, because a lot of people really want to hear you tonight. So those individuals who are under anonymous names, you're welcome to continue to watch the show. You're welcome to continue to comment. But since you don't have a real name, I'm not going to give you the time of day that you're looking for. I just want to say that's all I wanted to say in respect to that. But let me get to some comments of people that actually have a face and a name to their profile, and they actually want to hear what you have to say. Want to say hello to one of my buddies out there. His name is C2K. He says hello. Want to say hello to Mr. Charles Reed. Charles, as a matter of fact, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Charles, for your support. Want to say hello to the Yorkshiremen. Obviously, they're going to be in action coming up this Friday. C2K. Yes, C2K. I see you. C2K says everybody's the man, though. C2K is actually from Dunkirk, New York, by the way. Dunkirk.
All right. Okay.
Yep. I want to say hello to Richard. There you go. How you doing? See, a lot of people are excited. Even on Twitter. My fans on Twitter out there. I'm pretty sure this is, I'm trying to think if this is Olivier Laurent. This might be Olivier Laurent, one of my buddies from the basketball world. And also here, C2K wants to put you in his Hall of Fame. So C2K's got a Hall of Fame. So there you go. Want to say hello to the Tribal Cheese. Obviously, the Tribal Cheese logo, another big man. This one, I have to tune into Mustafa Khan. Although we've been booked on shows together in the past, I think either cancellations or obligations have never got us to meet in person. I really hope you're well, though. I am sure sometime on the road we'll meet up. Have you had any dilly-dalliance with the Tribal Cheese? He's all over the place on social media. He's like you. He dabbles in, he's everywhere. You're everywhere. Maybe you guys have done movies together. I don't know.
Oh, boy. I know there has been shows where cancellations or things have happened, and I don't think we've ever really got to meeting up and having a match or anything like that. But even with I mean, at the moment, because of my age and I'm getting old, I'm tend to stick with UKW for now. So it's just
Well, okay. Well, fair enough. And obviously, the Tribal Cheese is, certainly been a big proponent of things going on in the world of mental health. And I really appreciate some of the things he's doing. And he's going to be in your chair next Friday. So yeah, he's going to be here. He's been here many times, the Tribal Cheese. He's been here many, many times. So he's a longtime friend of the show. I wanted to ask you, though, you mentioned Jonathan Sedgwick. And I think what's so fascinating, obviously, is you're one half of the UKW Tag Team Champions, but also you've not only wrestled with Jonathan Sedgwick, you're teaming with him, but you also teamed with his son. And, we were talking about this off the air, and we were talking about like in wrestling, and I'm trying to think about this here. Has there ever been a wrestler that's teamed with a father and son? And I think it's one of the most unique things that anybody has done. So, I mean, what's that like to you? You didn't know that. It was funny. I was talking to you off the air about, you were like, really? I didn't know that. And it was like, I thought that would be kind of really fun to bring up.
It was, I mean, now you mention it, it's like, I mean, I've partnered with Jonathan Sedgwick for quite a few times. We've faced each other quite a few times. And then I had the opportunity of tagging with Joe. And what a talent, what a gifted young individual. And we had one hell of a match. And I think my reaction afterwards, we were back in the changing rooms. I think we need to tag again. That's what I wanted. That's what I said to him. I said, we should tag again. We need to do this again. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. And he is one talented individual. Very gifted.
But what's that like seeing his son now in terms of the wrestling world? Did you know that the son would always kind of go into things? I mean, because not everybody, I mean, obviously the biggest father-son is the Rhodes family right now, currently. And, but in terms of like, did you know that Joe Sedgwick would go on and compete?
Well, I'll let me put it this way. I took a training session one day and Joe Sedgwick was in the training session. And when I saw what he could do, I quickly ran to Jonathan. I said, you need to watch your son wrestle. And, and so what John said was, right, okay, put him in a match. And he surprised all of us. And and that's where, and I don't know if Joe will agree with me. I don't know if I did. I can't remember. But when Joe started to wrestle, I'm the one that called him a prodigy, and
One of the
I
comments here
saw.
actually addresses that you were kind of responsible for helping guide him into, his career journey, more or less.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when he first started off, he was doing a lot of the background work at UKW. You know, the cameraman, the setting up, and everything, and this, that, and the other. But when I saw him in training, and his fitness, his cardio, his the moves, everything, he knew it off the bat. He knew it. And that's when I turned around to John. I went, John, you need to have a look at your son. You need to watch him wrestle. And sometimes, and it was a similar thing with my father. My father never realized how good I was at the karate, the kickboxing, and this, that, and the other until he saw me do it. And I think sometimes when you, as a father, I'm not blessed with kids, but I think when you're focused on the students and this, that, and the other, but sometimes my father forgot me. He didn't really see me what I was good at. But then he realized, well, and he was like singing my praises, this, that, and the other. And that's it. And I saw John. I went, John, he's wasted behind the camera. You need to watch him wrestle. And I can't remember who he faced in the training match, but what a match. It was just amazing. And that's it. And that's where it all started. And Joe was was put on shows, put on had matches, and look at him now. He's flying high.
It's so interesting, though, that he took roles that wasn't necessarily getting him right into the ring. I mean, maybe in a way that helped him because, we speak all the time with different wrestlers from different places and, learning to set up the ring, learning to get there early, doing different stuff with camera work, whether it's maybe even doing video editing now, which is a big thing. If you have a YouTube show like UKW and others and doing other things that help in terms of the overall show, maybe in a way, Champ, that actually helped him in terms of what we see of him now. I mean, what do you think on some of that?
100%. This is one thing. I mean, even when I wrestled in Stoke, even though it took me 2 hours to drive to Stoke, we still had to set the ring up. We trained for 6 hours. We
Oh,
dismantled the ring.
Mark talks all the time about he
Yeah.
would wrestle 2 shows and still set the ring up in between. I mean,
Yes.
guys, I speak with guys all the time. I mean, we have guys coming on later tonight, New York time, and they're wrestling in a 400-seat venue. And these guys get there, all of them, the Iowa Midwest Federation Wrestling Company, want to give them a big shout out. And these guys get there at I don't know, maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning to their venue. And all these guys get there and they set the ring up. And then they're there until probably, I want to say midnight almost. It's a hard thing to do, but it's a good thing to do because it helps build. It builds character, and I always say wrestling is like an apprenticeship. I think that's to me what I kind of feel.
This is it, and I'll be honest with Jonathan and his boys. They're well disciplined. They're polite. All the kids now, especially with Joe. I've never heard him shout. I've never heard him be verbally abusive. He's never said no to anything. He's grafted. He's earned that spot because he trains and he trains hard. And I know that he also trains with Rampage Brown on Sundays at times as well, with Sebastian Mercer as well, I believe, and a few other guys. But he's not been given that. He's not been given it. He's earned it. And that's one thing I'm a strong believer about, is that you have got to earn that spot. You have got to earn everything. You can't, I mean, we're lucky at UKW, we've got a 20-foot ring, which is already set up. But I know where other promotions, they've got to set the ring up. Some of them have got ring guys and this, that, and the other. But I remember back in the day, 2001, we were not allowed to, we helped set the ring up, but we had to train to a certain level to actually train in the ring, to actually step foot into that ring. And like I said, I'm old school. So a lot of the old school methods, I don't think a lot of people would like these days.
But maybe that's what people need. I mean, it's a different, like you said, there's a lot of things that go on now. You talked about the politics. You talked about, different things that go on, that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. But maybe in a way, it worked then, maybe it works now. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've obviously experienced far more than almost anybody, I would say, currently, with the exception of maybe Dean Allmark in the British wrestling scene in the independents. I mean, Dean is still going, and he joked about he was going to retire, and then said, "No, I can't retire. I'm Dean Allmark." So I mean, you're kind of in the same boat because you said that you want to wrestle for as long as you can. You said this, I think, maybe about a year or so ago. I mean, so maybe that's what worked then. Works now. The old adage is if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's it. I mean, especially, with UKW, it's slightly different because I don't own it or anything. But for example, my kickboxing school, zero crap. There's this.
Well, you've been doing that since 1987. I mean,
That's right.
what's that like in terms of what are the differences and similarities in that world? I think that's a really fascinating thing. Before I get to some stuff I'm going to put up on the screen here in a second.
Yeah. Well, with the martial arts, I started off with doing Shotokan karate, Shukakai karate, then moved on to American kickboxing, which I fell in love with. Full contact, and that's my type of fight. I love that sort of where it was elbows and knees, shins, feet, you name it. Everything went, but the discipline factor was very, very high. My very first lesson was to punch a brick wall. So yeah. So at the age of 14, I was doing karate. First lesson I had was to punch a brick wall. And then when I transitioned from karate to American kickboxing, I fell in love with it. But the training was just intense. And that's what set me up for wrestling. So when I made that transition from kickboxing to wrestling, when I was in Stoke, they could see what I could do straight away. And I did a bit of jiu-jitsu, I've touched on 15 different styles of martial arts.
Wow.
And so the wrestling, it was a lot easier to get into. It was a lot easier to get into with the rolls, the bumps, the break falls. Even one thing I'm proud, and a lot of the guys say that even at the age of 50, and I can still do the flip. I can still do a flip and land on my back. So, that's one thing I'm proud of. And but it just keeps me going. It just keeps me going. And I think there's someone that I know that is only 6 months older than me that can't even touch his toes, that is struggling to move. And that's what keeps me going is that, keep training, keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, listen, why 50 is nothing compared to guys like DDP. I mean, DDP does the DDP yoga, and DDP I think is 67, and this guy looks like they're talking about, oh, maybe he could appear at WrestleMania. I mean, 50's, you talked about 50, but to me it's like the new 35 almost. I mean, 50's like if you look at WWE, I mean, a lot of guys, Bobby Lashley's near 50. I mean, LA Knight's 41. I mean, you can go up and down the list of guys. AJ Styles is basically 50. I think AJ Styles, if I'm not mistaken, is like 46, 47. So to me, I'm going to get to comments in a second, but 50's nothing. I just think to me, like, if you can go out there, you kept yourself in shape, and we have different technologies. It was a different world, years ago. I remember my father used to do a lot of weightlifting, and he always used to talk about bodybuilding. And 50, 20 years ago was like, people looked at it like not the way they look at it now, because we have better dieting, technology, so if you can keep yourself in shape, why not? Let me get to some comments here. Mustafa is an absolute gentleman, great with the fans, great with people in general. Of course, he's an actor. He's done modeling. He's done kickboxing for 37 years, obviously. And thank you, C2K, for the kind words. Joe is crazy talented, as we talked about. A funny question here, though. What is your favorite Estonian of all time? So we'll allow that question. That's a kind of a comical one. You are in acting, so you have to do a lot of comedy.
This guy is, how shall I put it? My favorite Estonian is probably the guy that played for Liverpool,
Okay, yep.
Tavi, you're not my favorite Estonian. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to certainly say I don't know much about that, but I will say, let me come up here.
Mustafa, he's a very good friend of mine.
King of Chops. It's funny. I did a show yesterday. We honored a wrestler who had unfortunately passed away at the age of 34 2 years ago. And he actually was in the ring with Jerry the King Lawler, a guy, Dylan Bostic, who's a major independent wrestling star in the United States. And he was like known in the Midwest in America as Mr. Chops. And,
Right.
guys were sharing stories about that. And I've seen some of your chops because I've actually watched you in
Oh
different
boy.
promotions as well. And, do you feel you are the king of chops? And maybe we should put a king crown over your head? I don't know.
Maybe I think um I think at UKW I'm the king of chops, and as Beth
You
stated, is
might
the
be
king
the
of
king of a
chops.
lot of things. I'm certainly going to say that much here. Mustafa Khan and Jonathan Sedgwick has not one of, if not the best storied histories in UKW. Yeah, I mean, since 2011, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
on and on and off. And, real quick on that, and I do want to pull up some things. I have a bunch of things I've planned for you, which I'd like to, display on the screen here shortly to start off. But, how have you guys been able to do that? Because in wrestling, we look at like a year. Everybody talks about, for WrestleMania fan, The Rock, and Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. And, Cody and Roman have been, I guess, going back and forth for plus a year. And people are like, okay, they got to finish it now. They got to
Yeah.
finish it. But yet you guys have been going back and forth for over a decade in different forms, whether it's against each other and side by side. And, so how have you guys been able to do that then?
I think what it is chemistry. We work well together, and I think also another thing that helps is our skills at doing promos, telling giving all this information to the crowd, making this is another thing is like when I go out to wrestle, I do it for the crowd. Don't do it for me. I don't do it for anyone else. I do it for the crowd. And if we can leave that ring and the crowd have had a good match, we've done our job. And I think with Jonathan and I, we've just definitely got really good chemistry. And he's talented. He's very talented. A lot of the guys that have worked with him for the first time, after in the changing room, they said, you know what, he's so good to work with, and he is very knowledgeable. And I've loved every match that we've had, and we've had hardcore matches, we've had all types of matches, and we just really got good chemistry. And I think the important thing is that we look out for each other as well. And we we want to have the best matches, and we do. We have really good matches, and when you've got that, then everything becomes easier. Everything becomes easier.
I
And
never heard you answer this question, but what is your favorite type of match you've wrestled in your career? I never actually, no, I never heard you really, answer this question. What is your favorite type of match to wrestle in? I
my
just it'd be fun.
my favorite type of match is the more violent is the better. So the hardcore matches, the
So you
Persian
would
rule
fit
match.
in then with, I'm friends with a couple of guys, right? I'm going to show off some of my, friends of the show. So if anybody's here out there and wants to say different things, these are some of my friends. We have a company we work with called GTS, Grimm's Toy Show. They're the seventh biggest YouTube viewed wrestling company in the world. They're ahead of
Nice.
Ring of Honor. They're ahead of New Japan. And, a couple of my friends are a few guys named Jimmy Controversy and a guy, Mikey Anarchy. Now, they're important, but you'd love these guys because, especially Mikey Anarchy, because Mikey came onto my show about 2 or 3 months ago, and he
Right.
showed his back, and you could play connect the dots with it. He literally,
Oh,
all the cuts that he had, all the welts, and I've watched him wrestle live. This guy literally, I mean, you maybe have done stunt work. This guy literally is a walking stunt man. I mean, you fit in well with those guys. And Jimmy Controversy has wrestled Tommy Dreamer. He's wrestled Pitbull Gary Wolf. And he's, a guy that is another guy that he's put himself through all these types of things that you'd probably love putting them through. I mean, maybe you could take them both on at the same time. I'll let them know that, actually. They're very good friends of mine.
just reminding that I'm an old guy, I'm an old fella. But I probably won't go to that extremes, but I do love a lot of the guys know in the changing room when I know there's a Persian rules match, when I know it's a hardcore match, I'm a kid in a candy store. I'm excited. I am taunting my opponents. I am literally I'm skipping around the changing room. That is my world. That is my element.
Well,
You know, I love to go
so
in there
funny.
and battle.
Well, that's so funny. You're gonna chuckle real quick, and I want to get to some more comments, and I want to put up some links from you. But this Jimmy Controversy is so interesting because he actually, one of the matches I watched him in about 2 months ago, he took his opponent, who's, by the way, his name is Hardcore. He took a syringe needle and put it through his lip. I thought you'd like that one, and Jimmy will appreciate me telling that story on the air because he actually does love me telling that. But there you go. That's one of your favorite Estonia, I think. So there you go. Also here, great tag team, but greater opponents. Very good. And also Jonathan Cena, Johan Cena,
Oh,
Johan
Johan
Cena's
Cena.
best Estonian ever, and want to say hello. Mustafa is hardworking, great friend inside and outside the wrestling world, and his kickboxing great students. And obviously, hello to this individual who I think we know who it is. So we say hi to him. But I want to obviously change gears for a few minutes. I want to say hello, obviously, to Mr. Chris Levitt. I want to say hello to everybody else tuning in there. But I want to actually pull something up, which I think would be kind of cool, which is
Okay.
this. If you obviously recognize it's kind of changing gears a little bit, you have a pretty big resume in the world of acting. And yes, you are
Oh boy,
actually
yeah.
an actor. I knew that you would like this interview because I know you've done some podcasts in the audio format, but I have had this new thing that I've learned the last couple of months called the share my screen. I have something I'm going to present to you in a few minutes, but before I do that, you've got quite a history in the world of acting, and I was curious and what inspired you to become an actor and just, some of the stuff you've done and what does that mean to you? And when you go back into the wrestling ring, because you got a really big resume in acting, I think that's a pretty cool thing to
Yeah.
kind of talk about because I've actually done two short films in my life. I did one in college and I did one in,
Right.
for New York University. So I mean, I've actually done two of them, and there's another one somewhere where I'm in a commercial for Impractical Jokers. So I actually have done a
All
couple of
right.
these. Yeah, I've done a couple of these. Yep. So, but tell us about your story in the world of acting.
Oh boy, the acting was completely by accident. Completely by accident. I was approached by someone um, in, and basically he invited me down to London to his photography studio, and I thought it was a hoax. I thought it was a prank, and then he contacted me a few weeks later. He said, "I'll pay for you to travel down." I went down, had a photo shoot, and that's it. I had my photographs, I had everything, and I, there were four people ahead of me. They all got rejected, and the four people ahead of me were slim, very attractive,
What do you mean? You
stunning.
say you're not attractive? You're 6'4"
Me,
and 200 something pounds, and you've been kickboxing since 1987. You don't sell yourself short here, champ.
no, but I look like Shrek. So the thing is, so when we were getting assessed, these four people, they they all got rejected. So I walked in. I just said to the lady, "Right, sign the paper. I'm out of your hair. I'm not going to whinge. I'm not going to moan. I'm not going to cry. I know I'm not model material and this, that, and the other." And she went, "Sit down." She went, "If I want a 5'9", whatever weight, blonde lady or a guy, I've got thousands of them. What we don't have are guys over 6 foot that are broad as a door, you know." And she liked, I think, 250 plus photographs what they'd taken that day.
Wow, that's a
And
lot of photos there.
yeah,
250 in a day. Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
we had 600 in total, and the lady that's the assessor, she only has to like 50 of them,
Oh,
and
wow.
she said she liked 252 of mine, um, and that's it. And I was shocked. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw myself on screen, I was gobsmacked. I said, "What have you done? You've used airbrush. You've done." She went, "Your photographer has just brought the camera in. You saw me plug all the data and everything into the drive. The photos are untouched." And I was shocked, and I was like, "Damn, I look good." And that's it. And it was just applying with casting agencies. And 2015, I started doing extra work in the background, and then bit by bit, I had supporting artist roles, and I've been in a couple of feature films as well.
Babyface, I know you were in. I know we have
Yeah,
Zach in Action coming up.
yeah,
We have some of them here. I mean, you've had some really, important roles. I mean, I think that's, fascinating that, we've had guys come on the platform that have done some of that, but you got like a pretty big resume to be on, this platform and to have that many roles. I think that's a pretty, noteworthy thing to have an IMDb resume. Yes, your wrestling
yeah,
resume is very long, champ, but your acting resume, you've put a pretty nice career together there. You're almost kind of like the British version of a Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash obviously was a big man. He got some roles. He was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, and then he got a role in The Punisher, and he,
yeah,
did The Longest Yard. Then he had having a nice career in acting, and you've kind of developed a nice career as another big man, a British
yeah.
big man in a lot of these roles. I think that's pretty fascinating, pretty unique thing about you.
It's amazing. I mean, my main job of working in education, but I have a passion for acting, and I'm also writing a script. I'm also
Oh,
writing a
wow.
little sitcom called Big Man Monty, and it's a comedy. So we've got the first two episodes written up, and
Oh,
we're
wow.
going to start getting that filming. But I'm going to start off small. Like YouTube, TikTok, build that audience, and then hopefully, touch wood,
I
we
just
can.
had a video on TikTok hit 30,000 views. So I mean, TikTok is a
Wow. Yeah.
big thing. Yep, and I have one on Instagram right now that hit 2,500 almost. So if you go
Wow.
social media, it's
Yeah.
a big world. I'm curious because I took drama in high school. I took it for 3 years. I've always had a passion for acting in movies, and I did a podcast on it years ago. And what are some of the types of genres you like? I mean, obviously, everybody thinks, oh, you're an action guy. You're the big, tough, rough and tough guy. But do you like other things that people might not know that you would be more interested in terms of your acting or types of things you like to be a part
Oh,
of?
yeah. I think majority of my roles are I'm usually a henchman or a gangster.
Well, you had the Persian Empire, so that's pretty
Oh
obvious. You're
yeah,
gonna be a
yeah,
henchman.
yeah, yeah. So it was, but it's yeah, it's I've done. I'm just trying to think what um I mean, this is why I've gone for the comedy. This is why I've gone for the comedies. Big Man Monty's is funny. Is funny. The people that have read the script, um, they were just like, just get it produced, and I don't think a guy my size and build, would do a comedy. And I do want to try. And I was cast for. Boy, I was supposed to be playing a father, but I chickened out. It
You
was
chicken out. Why would you chicken out? You're Mustafa Khan. Why would you chicken out there?
because it was theatre, and I didn't want to.
Well, I can
Yeah,
understand that because when I took drama in high school, we had to like perform on stage, and I took communication speech in college, and I was never my cup of tea. The theater
yeah,
part was always like, I don't know, it didn't connect with me. I didn't,
no,
I can understand that. Okay, fair. I get that. All right, fair enough. And you have a bunch of roles here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. We see here. We have Let's Play, which you're supposed to be filming. You've got Babyface. I think you're known for Commando 3, Family 3, 1921, and you got a lot of stuff here. And you've even done
yeah.
some stunt work there. I mean, what's the difference doing stunts versus acting? I mean, stunts, I'm assuming you're just doing something that an actor wouldn't do in terms of what.
What was the stunts for? Was that oh no.
It's back in action.
Oh, back in yeah. So basically, well, mainly with that, it was a bit of fight choreography. The positioning, because I've very early on I did a William Shakespeare play. I think it's called Much Ado About Nothing, and there was a wrestling scene in there, but it was a modern twist to it. So they asked if I could choreograph for that, which I did do. And then I think we're back in action. I got approached and said, "Oh, would you mind doing X, Y, and Z?" Which I did do. So it wasn't major. It wasn't big stunts.
So I have to ask you a fun question, and there's so much to talk with the legendary Mustafa Khan. And we're going to pull up his social media on the screen because I really try to go the extra mile. Plus, I still have something I want to present to you in a little while. But did you watch the Oscars this year? Because I actually, I saw Oppenheimer. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, Oppenheimer!" And everybody was talking about all these different movies that came out this year that should have won awards. And do you wind up watching that, and stuff?
No, I've never really watched Oscars. I have so much going on. So obviously we work, the wrestling, the acting, and the kickboxing. I tend to miss out on a lot of things, So I'll leave the
I
house
gotta be
early.
honest. One of my friends who was a big fan of mine said, we were in a car ride the other day, and he goes, did you watch the Oscars? I sat there, and what did you think? Because I go to the movies a lot, and we were talking about movies, and I was like, I never watched the Oscars once in my life, so that's a kind of funny, different thing there you put out there. But let me pull up some social media because I want to show people what Mustafa Khan has to offer. So let's make sure we do that here for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio. If you'd like to, you have a chance to follow him on Instagram, you can do that here. There he is holding up that belt, and you
Oh
can
boy.
see him here on social media, and there he is. And obviously, man's a living legend, and you can see some different stuff he's been a part of throughout his career. You can check him out, and also all things related to UKW. Check them out there everywhere on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You want to follow them because, as listen, we always say, all wrestling matters. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. And we are going to be here tomorrow as well. Also, we're going to be here with a bunch of different guys from the IMF's upcoming show, Rumble at the Rec. So it'll be New York time here today, but UK time tomorrow. So make sure you support us. We're on YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579. Also, we're on Twitch at Sportswire Radio. And also, our buddy C2K has said he has just followed Mustafa Khan. So I appreciate that you have followed. So we're trying to get you some more followers out there. And I'm going to pull this off the screen. And actually, I think it's a good time because I actually want to present to you something. You know, Mustafa Khan, I try to go above the extra mile for people that come on the show. You know, I know people just do podcasts and they expect to just get, maybe an interview and, a few questions. The interviewer, maybe they sound informed, maybe not informed. But while we're having a good time in the show, I actually wanted to give you something that would kind of recognize you here on this special. No, it's a good thing. I promise you it's a good thing. We've got the show, and I've been doing this a long time, so I know how to basically lead these things. It's like how you do lead roles and you do lead stuff in the ring and those chops, but I wanted to present to you something which I think would kind of show our appreciation, not just for you coming here tonight, but for everything that you've done here in this sport, because there's only one person, there's only one platform that brings people from all over the world, like Sportswire does in the wrestling world. So I want to present it to you if you insist, hopefully.
All right.
Well, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, on this platform here on April 4th, 2024, I wanted to go above and beyond the extra mile and actually acknowledge you, my friend, on all of our platforms: Twitch at Sportswire Radio, Instagram at the Sports Report 2021, YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579, Facebook at Sportswire Radio, Facebook at my personal page, sportswireradio.org, LinkedIn. Yes, because we're on LinkedIn right now, because I have a LinkedIn page, a very impressive page on LinkedIn, by the way, with many, many connections from all over the world. Twitter at Thomas Price 2017. That, my friend, it is your day today. So congratulations. I bet you haven't had a day in your career, and now you have one, and I'm going to make sure you have the certificate here live after we're off the air. And, congratulations.
Thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Thank you.
We try. We try to go above and beyond the extra mile here on Sportswire. People may have differences of opinions, but at the end of the day, we try to recognize our guests, and I want you to have this when we're off the air, and we'll definitely come back to something else in a few minutes. But I did want to ask you also, in terms of your career, what's it like being a world champion? What's that responsibility like? I ask people all the time this question, but I wanted to ask you formally.
I think we've being a world champion, you automatically become the poster boy. You know that you are guaranteed to be on the next show because you've got to defend that title. There's an element of pressure. There's an element of definitely there is pressure there, but it's good pressure. Either it makes you, or either it breaks you, or it makes you. And I love having that pressure. I love going out and, trying to do better each match that I have. But there's definitely some element of pressure there. Definitely.
I think that's a good thing, because I interview a lot of athletes. We just had on 2 football players around the world on Tuesday's show, and we were talking about that they played in the championship game of their particular university, and they were number 1 ranked nationally. And we were talking about that in terms of just that pressure, and they loved it. They rose to the occasion. It felt like that it motivated them. Did you feel when you were UKW champion, the times that you were, that you had like an extra incentive or an extra motivation? Is that maybe a fair way to look at it?
Yeah, definitely. With the heavyweight title, there's a lot of responsibility.
Sure.
There's a lot of responsibility. And the thing is, at the end of the day, majority of the time, your main event, and you've got to make that match stand out. So the crowd have already had X number of matches before, and as the heavyweight champion, you and your opponent, you've got to make that match count, where it's in people's memories. They remember that match. I know one of my favorite matches I had was with JPR.
I know JPR very well.
Yeah. And I don't think there was any wrestling involved.
I mean,
But
what a
the
storyline you in the Persian Empire and JPR were involved in 2022. I covered that here on the platform quite a bit. I mean, that was some story there with you and JPR, more or less.
yeah, it was such a pleasure to work with him. It was such a pleasure. He was a really good worker, and
Yeah, I've spoken
but
to him many times off the air. Many times off the
yeah,
air. Yes,
he's a nice guy.
very
Nice
nice
guy.
guy. Yes, we have always had good conversations. Myself and JPR was always, very cordial, very good guy.
But and he was just with our match. There was, and this is what we kind of say to a lot of people. There was hardly any wrestling moves in there. It was all punches, kicks, this, that, and the other. And the crowd, they were just so loud. They just tore the roof off the building, and that's what it's about: is going out and having one hell of a match. And that responsibility as the heavyweight champion, I think that match I lost, so he became the new UKW heavyweight
He was the
champion.
champion, and like right afterwards, he had to
Yeah,
relinquish the title. That was the storyline there. Yeah, I mean, it was.
yeah.
I think if I recall correctly, I was supposed to have him on, and then he obviously couldn't defend the title, so it was kind of like, I think right around that time, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, yeah. I think to be honest with you, nothing that I just realised was he'd actually, I don't know if he fractured or broke his ankle, and he still wrestled. And our Mustafa Khan was the big old heel then, and but it just tells you what character JPR is, and the dedication that he's got to wrestling, where either he would have fractured or broken ankle that only I don't know how many days he's been healing, but he still wrestled, and he didn't want to give that opportunity up to face Mustafa on that night, and he smashed it. He did it.
For sure, absolutely, no question about that, and I could certainly see some of those things as to why. Speaking of 2022, I want to bring this up now because I think it's a great segue. And when you reached out to me, you were like, "Do I know who you are?" And I was like, "I absolutely know who you are because, as I referenced in my introduction of you, you actually wrestled as the UKW World Champion against the GT Ministries World Champion against a guy I know
Oh,
very well. It's no longer GT Ministries; it's obviously Kingdom Wrestling." Mr. Jack Johnson, and you wrestled him in a chain match. Now, I'm not going to talk about the
yeah,
outcome of the match, but I thought it was pretty cool. It was actually right around, I think it was just about 2 years ago, maybe next
yeah.
month, if I recall correctly, something like that. Either late April or maybe late May. I forget the months. I'm kind of out of whack on that, but it's definitely right around 2 years ago that you wrestled him in a champion versus champion match. Obviously, the belts weren't on the line, but I thought that was a pretty cool moment that you wrestled as the UK World Champion against another
Mhm.
promotion's World Champion and Jack Johnson. And Jack's a guy that I know very well. I've had Jack on many times in the platform. Great guy. He was the Bolton Town Wrestling World Champion. He's a guy really has gone up the ranks. And I always make the running joke that he's the better looking version of Davey Getzey because it's always like Jack Johnson and Davey Getzey. It's like they look alike, but I say, no, Jack Johnson's the better version of Davey Getzey. We love Davey Getzey. I've had him on so many times here in Sportswire Radio, but I was curious that, just what was that like to be able to wrestle as the UKW World Champion on another company's TV and a different audience? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was. I was a bit because you're going into a different territory, and
I
you
know
don't know
Bradford's
how.
totally different from the
Yeah,
UKW side. Totally different
yeah,
environment.
and you don't know how the crowd are going to react to you. You don't know how. So even if you could be faced, you go out, the crowd could still hate you, and vice versa. And it was strange. It was because I'm used to the UKW arena and
That
wrestling in front of the
Fountains Church is
UKW
a
crowd.
totally different environment than what you're
Yeah,
used to wrestling.
yeah,
From experience, I have covered a lot of their product over the years, and it's a totally different environment.
oh yeah, yeah. And it was just, and I think the other thing was, I think what got me at that was my very first ever chain match. I'm trying to think. Oh,
We were speaking about that, and that was kind of the stipulation. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I think I spoke to Jack about the match live on this platform. I'm pretty sure
oh wow,
I'm pretty sure that we spoke about that. And that was, we were, it was kind of like, it was such an ironic match for that environment. They weren't used to seeing that type of match.
No.
It added something to it, and I know you don't step into different rings as much anymore outside of UKW, but that experience, what did it do for you? I think in the UKW brand, this is going to a different place. Do you think it did anything in terms of just like for you guys, or going there? Obviously, your audience goes to watch it on YouTube. The GT mentions obviously they have a lot of stuff on Facebook and social media, but just for the company and yourself, what did you gain from that?
I think it was as going as a UKW heavyweight champion. I think it was a bit more exposure for UKW as the UKW heavyweight champion. If I wasn't the UKW champion, I don't think I would get a bit more exposure. But,
Sure.
But the thing is, that match, it was a difficult match, especially with the chain match. But I think I've actually wrestled for the ministries. What is it called? Kingdom now.
It's Kingdom now. Yeah, they changed it at the beginning of the year. Yep.
That's right. And I've wrestled for them in the past. For Gareth Angel and this, that, and the other, and but for a chain match in that environment, and I believe, I don't know, is my memory right? The building that we actually wrestled in is a church.
Yes, the Fountains Church. Correct.
Yeah,
the Fountains Church.
That's what kind of confused me was, the church can be accepting this as with a chain match and everything, this, that, and the other. And it was like, it was a good experience. And I think, it's a match that I definitely remember with Jack.
Well, I don't want to talk about the outcome of it because I will say I've had Jack on a lot. And I've referenced the outcome of it because I watched the match in its entirety. I watched it live, but I just thought it was cool. And I think I will say this, what I said live before the match and after the match, what I thought was cool, though, and it was credit to obviously Gareth, credit to obviously Jonathan Sedgwick, was we got a chance to see a world champion in another promotion wrestle another world champion. I think that's a really cool thing. We don't see that often. So I thought that was really cool. And kudos and props where props should be given is to both companies to have you wrestle there as the world champion and Jack to wrestle you as the world champion. Because, world champions may not necessarily have anything to gain by wrestling one another, but I thought it was really cool that you guys were able to do that. But, speaking of things that are really cool, speaking of things that are really fun, I actually want to present to you something that I also referenced here on the air, and I want to do it right now because, again, I have the share the screen feature, which no other podcast has out there. Let me promise you on that. And I will plug C2K in a few minutes, but I want to bring this up here because let's go down memory lane here because I have something that I wanted to pull up because everybody's watching this here. And how about it?
Oh boy, this is, I don't know how many years old. Oh boy. This is
Ta-da!
This is so old. I don't know what I was doing there.
I love it though. I wanted to do something. I know you've done podcasts and they didn't reference this. I'm like, how can they not reference this? Yeah, it was 1,000 views on YouTube.
I made this video because there were a lot of people out there that didn't believe me that I was a kickboxing instructor.
But you made it was your side and nobody believed you were a kickboxer?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it, Tim. You definitely look. I've watched you in the ring. You definitely look like a kickboxer.
Oh boy, this is so.
You actually look better now.
Yeah, I was a lot heavier there. I was a lot heavier. I think I was around about 338 pounds.
Wow, yeah, I know you said you were 23, 24 stones at one point. I think we got into wrestling, right? 24 stones, something like that. Oh, imagine being kicked by this.
Oh boy.
We'll get back to the wrestling. It was fun to put it up here on the screen. Look at that. Look at that. Look at it. Maybe you can have a career. You never know. Now, a lot of people out there that they didn't want to hear me. They want to see this. Actually, the whole thing. And I want to say hello to my friend Daniel Benner. Training only over 30. So Daniel, nice to see you. And Daniel had nice words from you. Well, Tupac reference. Hit him up. I know Tupac. Hit him up.
Yeah,
The medicine ball.
Tupac. Yeah, I'm a massive Tupac fan. So
Oh, living legend for sure.
yeah,
Absolutely. Tupac, definitely a living legend here. We'll stop the screen there. Yeah. So that was, pretty cool to see that there. Your YouTube is, you got a lot of stuff there on YouTube. You can go follow what's there on YouTube. But yeah, I thought that was kind of fun to share and, something different. I
yeah,
didn't, wanted to give you something different. I mean, I thought that was just,
yeah. I initially did that because there was my kickboxing students were saying that they were talking to certain people and they went, "There's no way he's a kickboxer. He's weighing 340 pounds. There's no way I can kick above my head. I could do the spinning kicks and all this, that, and the other." So I thought, right, and I was sick and tired of people because I was a big, heavy set guy. So I produced that video and
well,
just
I definitely see why you produced it, and people can certainly go check that out. And I was just curious, real quick, and obviously about 30 more minutes or so with Mustafa coming. We want to be respectful of the champion's time, and of course, he's a huge part of things over in UKW. We've seen his obviously acting stuff. He has stuff in the tank. He's got stuff on social media. Check him out. He is definitely the king of knockouts. After that, he is definitely, ladies and gentlemen, the king of knockouts. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling. And if you're here on YouTube for the first time, make sure you hit that sub button for us. We have coverage from all over the world, all sports, all wrestling, you name it. But, you've been an educator, and how has that role shaped your career? It also shaped what you do inside the ring, outside the ring, acting, kickboxing. What are those roles been before I say hello to a recent opponent of yours?
Oh boy. Yeah, working in education is I think one of the things what especially here in the UK, a lot of the youngsters they're very low on confidence, self-belief, self-esteem. And I know what that's like. I know what it's like to um,
You had a
you know
tough upbringing. You spoke about
yeah,
that many times. You've
you
had a
know
tough upbringing.
and what I wanted to show these youngsters is that with a bit of determination, a bit of grit, you can achieve things. But like everything, it's hard work. You've got to put that work in. You've got to put those hours in, and you got to make sacrifices. And one of the things I say to my kickboxing students was I was in a pretty big car crash back in 2002,
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't have a car for 9 months, but I took 2, 3 buses and then walked a mile and a half to where my dad's shop was, squeezed myself into his little car, and went kickboxing at my instructor's place. I did it for 9 months, so and it depends how bad you want it. It depends how bad you want that belt, that black belt, whatever you want to go for.
I appreciate you, being an educator because one of my friends, and I want to give him a shout out. My friend Steven Saperstein actually he teaches sign language, and he teaches.
Oh,
His parents were deaf, and his brother is deaf, and he's an English teacher, teaches sign language, and I appreciate what he's done, and I appreciate all educators because after all, a guy like me is doing this, and I barely can speak any thing on the air. It was a running joke. I'm trying stand-up comedy in case this thing doesn't work out because that's kind of my running joke. But after all, people will probably want to give me the hook off the air. Maybe I'll try it on stage. But obviously, I thank you for what you do as an educator. And I want to say hello, actually, to somebody that you've been in the ring with not too long ago, Mr. Chris Castle. He says
oh,
Mustafa is a great guy. Honored to have known him as long as I have, and great to wrestle and train with. And you've had an interesting history with him. He's been a part of the Persian Empire. You've been
yeah.
wrestling him also not too long ago. And anything you want to share about our friend here, Chris Castle?
Chris is, I've known him. I think when I first started at UKW 2011,
Oh, wow. Okay.
he was already there, and one of the things is one of the funniest things we did, and for the life of me, I can't find this video. Is basically he's talking in English and I'm talking in my mother tongue, Punjabi, and he's asking me questions. I'm answering back in Punjabi, but there's key words that are in English, and it works so well. He's such a nice guy, gentle soul, and I think he did have a bit of a break from wrestling. He came back, and do you know what? He's smashing it. He's putting the work in. From what I gather, he's training, and he's doing what he's doing. And you know what? He's making things happen. He's a
And he
good
said
guy.
he wishes he still had that video.
Yeah, yeah, same here. I wish and for the life of me, I can't find it anywhere. is one of the funniest videos ever. And I think it was Jonathan that filmed it. And he's just, uh, I think we were, as I was a heel, and we were talking about Jonathan Sedgwick. And the only English words that I said in my sentence was Jonathan Sedgwick hospital bed. So it was, so
Wow, that's kind of funny there. That's funny. And I think somebody wants to ask you, who one of my recent supporters who has followed me over the past couple weeks, Nate, wants to ask you if you're related to Tony Khan.
no, no,
I,
no.
I I knew the answer, but I just because Nate and it's not. I don't know if it's real money in his hand. It might be, but he obviously is a big supporter of mine. And I want to give him a big shout out because he's been
Yeah.
listening to he listens to all of my shows. I have a lot of
Wow.
guys that listen to. I could be on the air. I was on the air New York time at like 1:00 in the morning. Nate was here. I mean, he's just like. Nate is one of my biggest supporters out there. So I want to give him a big shout out. And he said hospital bed in the joke. And speaking of one of my biggest supporters, I promised that I want to give him a big shout out. My buddy C2K. I want to pull up his new merchandise real quick before I come back to a few other things here from you. And that's his shirt. So if you want to see it, there you go. You can go get your C2K shirt. Thank you, C2K, for allowing us to present your shirt. We'll definitely, I'm sure, share more of your merchandise in the future and go to his page for more information. But in the interest of time, I want to ask you a couple of things. I found it so fascinating, though, that you talked about some of your favorite matches, and one of them was with a guy named Karl Radinovich. I mean, Karl Radinovich, a man. Yes, he was on the platform. Yes, he had his opinions, but you had said it was one of your favorite matches in your career, and I'm curious why and what was your memories?
I think it was it a last man standing match or a hardcore match, and we went all out. We went all out, and
a chain match was, if I recall correctly, it was a chain. It was a chain match. Yeah.
Oh,
I wound up. Bertie gave me the match, so I watched the match actually.
Yeah. And I think Jonathan got involved as well.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, in the match, Karl hit you kind of weakly. If I recall correctly.
Oh yeah.
He hit you very weakly. I mean, maybe it's kind of some of the. It's a joke. Maybe it's a funny joke. Maybe it was kind of some of the weak things we said when they were on the air a couple months ago. Who knows? But that's what I kind of saw in the match, and it's kind of surprising you brought that up. You've had so many matches in your career. You've had hundreds of thousands of matches, and that was one of your memorable ones. I just thought that was so interesting to bring up because obviously we know Karl very well.
Yeah. We've had some really good matches, and I think the chain match was supposed to be a singles match, and then I think John got involved or Karl got involved, so we made it. Yeah, and there were some funny points. There were funny points that he's like, give me a shot with the chain, and the chain.
Oh, that's kind of who he is. He's got, he can be funny at times, and I just thought that was so ironic that was a match you remember, because we were talking off the air. You're like, I don't remember this, I don't remember that, because I was going to bring up Comic Relief, and you were like, I don't know if I should bring that up, because it was like, but you remembered that match so well. I just thought that was so interesting.
Because I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, back in the day, I've not seen Karl. Wow, I've not seen him for quite
5 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 6 years.
5 years, yeah. I think since COVID.
Yeah, I think 20. Yeah, I think we were talking about it off the air. About 5 years, I haven't seen him in.
And I need to catch up with him. And but all honestly speaking, he was a bloody good wrestler.
Listen, I enjoyed his work. I watched a lot of it. I mean, I watched a lot of people's matches. He had, a lot of things he brought. He had character. He had ability. I mean, it is what it is.
He wasn't. I'm not talking about his shape, but he was an all rounder.
Yes. Yes.
So commentary, presenting, wrestling.
Oh, I had him on here. He actually. He gave me an introduction. He actually cut me off. Yeah, he's a really fascinating guy, very creative, very colorful guy. Really had a good mind. And just a great guy. And I just thought it was kind of fun to mention the matches. I like Karl Radinovich. So there you go. I like him. I like him. I like Chris Levitt, by the way. I know these guys. I like him.
Yeah. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy, and I think he messaged me today. I think he did message me today, and he went because he mentioned because as soon as the link came up, he messaged me, and I went, and we will. I've not, like I said, we need to have a catch up, and I've not seen him in such a long time, um, and yeah, but he was like same again, just like with Jonathan. I could go into that ring and I know that I could have a good match. The chemistry, everything
I
with
think
Carl
that's so
was really good.
important in wrestling. You got to have
Yeah,
that chemistry. You got to have that
yeah,
synergy. I think
yeah.
synergy was the word I used 2 nights ago when we were speaking with the GTS IC and US champion. I have a good question from me. I'm going to let him ask it because I think it's a really cool one. If there's any wrestler that you haven't faced, it could be anywhere around the world. Who would you like to face? You've done a lot in your career, champ. There's a lot you've
Oh
done. I
yeah.
mean,
Oh boy. Any wrestler.
any wrestler. Anybody you like to face, anybody that you haven't got a chance. It could be here in the UK. It could be in anywhere. I mean, just anybody you'd like.
Do you know what? I'd love a match with Joe Sedgwick.
That's a good one. That's realistic. That's a realistic answer. That's a good one.
I'd love to have a match with Joe Sedgwick.
The
There's a
Yorkshireman
couple of
wants
guys
you.
that I don't think I've even
They want you.
Seb Mercer. Oh, Yorkshireman, I've already had a match with you and I've beaten you.
Well, that's why he wanted more. He wanted more,
Yeah.
I suppose.
You want more of this, don't you? That's what you want.
I don't know if it's feasible or not, but you wrestled Jack Johnson when he was the GT Ministries champion. I would love to see, Bentley is the current Kingdom champion. I would love to see maybe you and Bentley, maybe. That would be a kind of a fun match, somebody
Yeah.
different. I would think that would be, if we're going like in the British scene, I think that would be kind of fun. You and Bentley. I mean,
Yeah.
speaking of kickboxing, you do kickboxing. I have to bring him up because one of my very dear friends is RP Davis. I would love to see you and RP Davis at some point. RP, I know you're chuckling like, what are you doing to me, Tom? But RPD is coming. By the way, coming back to the platform here, at some point in the next month. And I would love to see you and him. I mean, that's a dream match. Arguably two of the biggest draws, I think, currently in the scene.
I just want to say I do want to see my 51st birthday.
I understand. I knew you were gonna. I knew that.
Can you see the white in the beard?
Well, I wasn't going to mention that, but I think that would be a dream. Maybe if you were like younger. Okay, you and RP.
Oh yeah, younger. When I when I was a younger guy, and this is I used to love it. I absolutely used to just love stepping in the ring, win, lose or draw. I just got a buzz off it.
Yeah, you know what? And I think that with him, I wish it could have been Tribal Cheese would be very fun because you and him are kind of similar in a lot of ways. That would be a match that you could certainly, I think, live after the match. He could live after the match, but although he'll kill me because he's going to be here next Friday, he might say, "Tom,
Right.
what are you talking about that?" But that would be good. There's a lot of guys I would love to see you wrestle in the ring, and they also want to put up. It doesn't count that it slept. It doesn't count.
Oh, yeah, I slept.
There you go. I wanted to ask you this question. Obviously, in the interest of time. Well, you get probably asked this a lot, but what are your goals for the rest of the year? Like, what are your goals? It could be anything. It could be goals in wrestling, could be goals in acting, could be goals in your business. What are some of your goals for this year coming up?
I think one of the goals is to get my little sitcom comedy filmed. I think another one goal that I have been working on is my overall general health, to improve my health, to drop a bit more weight, to try different exercises, and I want to continue to wrestle, and that's what it is. Is for me is I want to wrestle. I don't want to stop. I still
Dean
want
said
to.
the same. I asked Dean that question a few months ago. Dean said the same thing, and it was like he was like, I don't know wrestling. He was like, I can't not do this. He's like, he had talked about the first time I interviewed him, he talked about retirement, but then he was like, I had thought about it and I can't not do this. And, maybe it's the same way for you, because like that's what Dean's kind of rationale was. Maybe it's the same for you almost.
Do you know wrestling? I once described wrestling as a drug, and I even though I feel like crap at times, I'm also diabetic. So when I have a match, it takes me longer to recover. But
Sure.
I will continue to, I just want to have another match. I just want to, and it's just, and it's not, it's the only form of exercise, the form of training that I love and enjoy. And even at the age of 50, it's keeping my joints, my well-being and everything, is great for the mental
Well, you're
health.
an educator. When I was in college or university, for those around the world, my health professor lived till he had to have been almost 90. When he taught me, he had to have been in his like late 70s. Had said that if you don't move, you die. He basically was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"You don't move, you die."
yeah.
His name was Professor Stoyer, and I
All
never
right.
forget this. He was like this old little short guy. He would with balding hair, but he was like, like he was still teaching and almost 80 years
Yeah,
old. He goes, if you move, you die. So if
exactly.
that was
100%.
it. Like, okay, all right, I got you. That's it. I'm good. I'm good. That's gonna be my
Yeah,
my life motto, and I always lived by that. I've always
totally agree with him. Totally agree. My father said the same thing. When my father he retired from his work, and a lot of his friends retired. What they did was they were just sat on the couch watching television. Majority of them passed away. My dad, before he became ill, even at the age of 80, 81, you walk into his room, he had a 2 kilogram bag of protein, right? He was doing push ups, he had his dumbbells at the age of 80, 81, 82.
Well,
You
speaking
know,
of movies, real quick. Speaking of guys who are 80, the new Ghostbusters movie is out, and the whole big thing of social media has been Ernie Hudson. And he's 78, and this guy, they showed a picture of him. I
oh,
mean, he looked like, oh my god! I mean, this guy looked like he was in better shape than
yeah,
guys younger than me. I mean, the guy was ripped. He was like, so I don't
yeah,
think age means what it was. Chuck Norris, I brought up, is in his 80s. He looks
yeah.
great. Sylvester Stallone, although I don't know if some
Oh,
of it's performance or not, but he's in
yeah,
phenomenal shape. He's near
yeah.
80. I don't think age, like I said, I don't think age means what it did years ago. It was
No,
like 50, 20, even 30 years ago, 50 was like a death certificate. But it was like, you
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Now, to me, it's like, I don't think it means what it did back then.
No.
That's what I think.
Someone said to me that the 50 is the new 40. You
I
know,
said 35 live on the
yeah,
show, but
yeah,
I think that's kind of what
yeah,
I think. But yeah, you could say that 50 is 40.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's a fair assessment. I just think that, if you go out there and do the things you need to do, I don't think it means what it did.
No,
I
no.
just
I think it's also the most important thing is the mindset, and I think if you've got that mindset where okay, we need to go out and do so, I've just started recently. I've just started swimming.
don't. Oh wow.
Which is really good for the joints and the shoulders, the legs, all. And a very good friend of mine, one of my kickboxing students, Harvey, he's one of my black belts, and a friend of mine called Upgar. We go swimming once a week, and I'm a kid in a candy store again. It's just literally I'm swimming, I'm like diving, I'm doing everything, but I'm burning calories. I'm getting I'm getting the exercising, which is gentler on the joints, on the on the old bones, and and it's better for recovery as well.
That's it. That's all it counts. And Simon Miller versus Mustafa Khan. That's what Nate would like to see. And
Oh, right.
interesting. Appreciate that. I want to ask you in terms of, I know you get asked this a lot before I get to closing thoughts. Is there one or two moments in anything you've done? Could be acting, could be modeling, could be, I don't know, wrestling, whatever is kickboxing, educating. Is there one or two things that stand out most that you've done in your life?
Oh boy.
Could be anything. It doesn't have to be wrestling. It could be anything. I always ask this question to people that come on from all over the world, and I ask them that same question.
I think I think this is one thing I always say about wrestling is you meet some interesting people. You meet some fantastic people, and I I met a couple of individuals that were very low self-esteem, confidence, and as Mustafa Khan and as fans, we kept in touch, and because I work in education, I helped certain individuals out by getting teachers to send work over to them and now they're lawyers.
Oh wow!
There was a young lady that um, wanted to be a vet. They wanted to be a vet, but
Oh,
there was someone that came from a what we call like a council estate, rundown area, and she wanted to work in law, and all I kind of said is like, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? And if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. If not, then forget about it. Then move on to it. Move on to something else. there's a lot of youngsters that I've worked with. There's a lot of youngsters, and I've got a file this big with letters
Oh
from
wow.
from these former students, and and those students know what I've done for them. They know what I've done for them, and it's all about giving, and it's watching other people grow, blossom, and it's just like with wrestling, watching the youngsters blossom and achieve things now is what it's about. And I'm willing to help anyone that knows me properly, knows me realistically. They will know that I will go out my way to help that individual.
Before we get to closing thoughts, I think that's your greatest achievement. I know you've done acting. I know you got the sitcom. I know you've been the world champion. You're the current one half of the tag team champions in UKW. You a kickboxer. We showed you killing people in the ring with that. And, you've done so many things. But maybe that's, I think, the greatest achievement of who you are as an individual. And to me, that's what matters most. I said this when I gave a eulogy on the air yesterday for Kurt Asted, who had died, who was 34 years old. And I said, the greatest achievement to me is somebody and what they gave to those that they can leave a legacy behind to make them better people, not so much what they got in return. So I truly believe in life that if you go out there, and I'm actually a reverend, I am the Reverend Tom Bryce, I am a reverend. So I think ultimately what I try to do, when I try to speak with people, is that try to go out and leave the world a better place. And I truly believe
Yeah.
that you have done that. And that's why we pulled up on the screen earlier that it is your day today to be on, because we didn't bring you on here just because, yes, we want to talk UKW. We love talking about that. We certainly love talking about, what you've done, other things. But to me, that's the greatest achievement of who you are as an individual. And I think that that's, why we're here with you. And before I move on to some final things, Mustafa Khan, in my opinion, has the best entrance song by
Oh
Ripping
yeah,
Rhymes. You want to talk about that? Or also, what is your favorite entrance music? That's a great question. I'm happy to let Charles, ask that, because Charles is followed me on YouTube and I followed him back, and he's got a great guitar in the
yeah.
background there. So let's see, what do you think on
Well,
that?
I've known Charles, believe it or not, and I hope Charles doesn't mind me saying this. He was one of
Uh-oh.
the students. I worked in his school, and
Oh, wow.
he,
Okay.
yeah, and I think once he left the school, I was still there, and he's into his music,
I was gonna
lyrics, and this.
actually ask him if he was related to. There's a famous guitarist from a band called Living Color who do CM Punk song, and the
All right.
guitarist is named Vernon Reed. And the reason I bring Vernon
Oh,
Reed up is he actually lives not too far from me, and I was wondering, is
wow.
Charles Reed related to Vernon Reed? I
You
guess on
never
the
know.
guitar. I'm like, you never know, right?
You never know. You never know. And Charles introduced me to a young lady called Charlene, and she was called Mrs. Rhymes, and she was the
Uh,
head of Ripping Rhymes,
oh
and
wow.
they reached out to me and said, "We'd love to do your entrance music." I initially said, "How much?"
Oh wow.
And they just said, "No, we want to endorse you. We want to do the music for you." And when I heard oh a few minutes of it, I was just in love with that song. And every single person at UKW, every single place I've been to, you will get people dancing. You will get
I've
people.
heard your music before. Yeah, I've
Have
heard
you?
it. I've heard it.
Yeah,
Now I'm remembering. Yeah, I heard it.
yeah. And she actually got me involved. So first part of the song, I'm actually saying the Sultan of Slams, the King of Knockouts, and then there were three gentlemen from LA, I believe, that rapped on it. So, and
Wow.
they contacted me. They wanted to know everything about me, and um, so where I'm from, Leeds, West Yorkshire, the kickboxing hitman, they were calling me and all this, and the track is just amazing, and also a lot of people who are down and out said that song helped him to rise above whatever they were going through to come out stronger. And it's an amazing track. It's an amazing
Wow.
track. And that all started from Charles. So, Charles, thank you for that. I've not forgotten that. I've not forgotten that at
I
all.
think what's cool about that is that it had an impact, not just you coming out to the ring,
Yeah.
that you had Los Angeles rappers and you had people that said to you that music, helped in their life. And I think that's the greatest token of anybody saying anything, you know,
Yeah.
about you. I think that's really, really cool. And I wanted to present one more thing on the air because if you want to buy
Yeah.
some merchandise from no, this is good. Before we get to go, it's actually good. There's merchandise. If you want to buy Mustafa Khan
Oh
merchandise,
boy.
you can actually do that. You actually buy his shirt. See, we actually
All
go
right.
above and the extra mile. If you want to go out and support the champion, you can buy some merchandise. He has a pro wrestling t-shirt because every wrestler has one. I had to go out there and plug him in. I might have to buy mine also because my running joke is, champ, is that all I wear these days is wrestling shirts. Literally,
Oh wow.
all I wear is wrestling shirts. And I'm supposed to go to like a wedding in a month from now. And I said, well, I'll show up, but I'm wearing a wrestling shirt. So, there's no other choice, but you got to let me wear a wrestling shirt. If you
Sure.
don't, that's it. I mean, I ain't showing up, but I'm
This-
sure that'll go over well. Probably not, but that's okay. It's here nor there. But you have here your merchandise. Go out there and
Oh
support the
wow.
champion. Support those that support us. The champion has been so gracious with his time. I could ask him 1,000 questions, but I'm not going to do that because he'll probably kickbox me like he
No.
already wants to. But if you can see it here one more time, on this day, it is acknowledged as Mustafa Khan Day, and we want to thank him so much for his time. And obviously, UKW. If you like to follow UKW, they're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook to get ready for Friday Night Showdown. They've got big shows and pay-per-view is coming up on April 27th, 3 weeks from tomorrow. UKW's got thousands upon thousands of followers. You want to support them, go out there and support them. And I also want to put out there, I never said not to support UKW. There were certainly individuals that worked in UKW that they had opinions, and they're entitled to it just like everybody else's. But the point is, if you want to support UKW, absolutely support them because they have a lot of wrestlers out there who are doing a great job and who are doing great things. And we're about All Wrestling Matters here, and UKW is a part of All Wrestling Matters. We want to thank, obviously, UKW for allowing us this opportunity to speak with Mustafa Khan because, after all, he is one half of the UKW Tag Team Champion. So please support UKW and support every company out there. But most importantly, those are the things here tonight. We talked a lot today. We talked about the journey of Mustafa Khan. We talked about his family. We talked about his father. We talked about the wrestling world. We talked about modeling. We talked about acting. We talked about kickboxing. We talked about even the Big Monts video. We pulled that one out of our hat. We talked about IMDb stuff. We talked about sitcoms. Everything. We ran the gauntlet, but most importantly, we got a chance to know Mustafa Khan's story. And I hope Mustafa Khan would want to come back onto Sportswire Radio. And hopefully, the next time he comes on, maybe he would want to take his place into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame alongside Dean Allmark, alongside R.P. Davis, alongside Bentley. So maybe that would be something the champion would like to do when he has the time. Hopefully he will want to say yes. But until then, I'd like to give him some closing thoughts. I'd like to allow him to say anything else he wants. It's been an absolute honor to have him. He's welcome here anytime because, after all, look at the size of this man, ladies and gentlemen. You think I'm going to argue with him? No chance in hell. I mean, the tribal cheese may be big, but even he's a little bit shorter than Mr. Mustafa Khan, though he's probably going to remind me that's not the case next Friday, but that's here nor there. But I want to give him the floor. I want to give him some closing thoughts. And anything share or say, it's been an absolute honor. And champ, the floor is yours. I can't thank you enough. You've been so gracious, so I pass the baton to you.
No, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it, and I just want to say a massive thank you to you and everyone else that's supported me, supported UKW, and you
Oh
know
my
what,
God, absolutely.
really appreciate. I've actually loved every second of this, and I would love to
We
come
had a lot
back
of fun tonight. I know
anytime.
you've done these podcasts before, but I'm like, this is going to be different. You're going to run the gauntlet. When you go live, it's so different here. And I really feel like in a lot of ways, and I said this, but we'll let you come back to closing thoughts in a second. But we had on, obviously, the GTS Intercontinental and U.S. champion, Rad Dad Radley Belmont and Jimmy Controversy last week. And I said on the air to them, you're home on Sportswire, because the reason I say that, champ, because you're here in front of the people that watch you, the people that believe in you, the people that get a chance to know who you are. When you go on other podcasts, again, we love everybody out there. They're entitled to do what they want to do. But when you come here, I feel like it's different because you're in an element where other wrestlers and other people watch you. So I really feel like that you coming here, I think, is an absolute honor, brother. I want to say I am so honored that you're here with us. You have no idea, because you were even like telling me who you are. I'm like, no. I know you are. I've been doing this for a while, but the fact that you wanted to be here, and we have a lot of people that we mutually know, I think shows to, what an honor it is to have you. We want you here anytime. Anything else you'd like to share?
No, just a massive thank you to you, to yourself, and the rest of the, everyone that's out there. You know, just keep supporting
A lot of people
the
watching us right now. We had
promotions.
like 30 people at one point watching us live. A lot of people were watching this thing. So a lot of people were really like, we've done really well on Sportswire. We had, I think one of my most recent shows had 150 people watching me live. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I have a clip out there with 30,000 views on TikTok. So a lot of people are really like, they're really, behind Sportswire. So the fact you came on here, I think there was a lot of, excitement, a lot of motivation right now. So you really, I'm so glad you're here. You're welcome anytime. Anybody is welcome anytime. Anybody from UKW is here to be welcomed anytime. I want to thank you so much for your time. It's an absolute honor. I can't wait to see you back in the ring in UKW. Most important, so I can talk about some current stuff because I like to talk about the current stuff. I really, which is why I really love doing this show because I'm more in the current stuff. A lot of guys go, "Oh, tell me a story." I love to talk about the current stuff. So I hope next time you're on the show, we can talk about some stuff you've done in the ring that's most recent, and we can follow that up. And one more time, if you want to follow the champ, there is his social medias. Do that. And this is also in his day an honor for him. So we want that out there one more time. I'll send this to you off the air. And champ, congratulations. Thank you so much for your success. And thank you so much for the opportunity you've done here. And thank you for everything you've done here, not just in the world of wrestling, not just in the world of movies, kickboxing, but in the world of life. Because in the game of life, you have helped far more people than anybody could ever imagine. And that's, to me, your biggest crowning achievement. And that's why you are the person who you are. And congratulations. Thank you so much for being here on Sportswire Radio. And can't wait to do it again with you very soon.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the one and only Mustafa Khan, one half of the UKW Tag Team Champions. He is definitely the king of slams. He is obviously the sultan of slams, the king of knockouts. He is pretty much everything in between and a bag of chips, as my old friend British DJ, Downtown Julie Brown, used to say. He probably knows who Downtown Julie Brown was because if you're an MTV fan, Club MTV, he definitely probably knew who that was. But he is definitely all those things in between. Definitely, he was our king of knockouts, the prince of destruction, the sultan of slams. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. If you're on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and LinkedIn, I'll be back here New York time tonight about 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. But until then, you'll see the Tribal Cheese next Friday on the air. And also, please support UKW. Please support the champ on all of his platforms. And thank you so much for your support. And until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the number one global station that is Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters.